Welcome everybody to the Pillow Fright podcast first ever slumber party. I'm Alyssa.
I'm Kay.
And I'm Amalia.
And to continue with the theme for this month, last week we watched Late Night with the Devil. This week we are watching a film that clearly inspired it. I think we all know what we're talking about. Ghostwatch.
So if you haven't seen Ghostwatch already, it is currently streaming at the time of this broadcast on Shudder. So if you have Shudder or AMC Plus, go watch it and then come back so we can talk about it because there's so much to talk about.
And if you subscribe to our Patreon, you can watch along with us. So grab your popcorn and let's get into it.
Okay, so Mom's gone, but I want the lights back on because that movie was scary. We just finished watching Ghostwatch and it was my first time.
It was my first time watching it.
It was my, fifth time watching it?
It was.
It's still scary as fuck, though.
It's still super scary. That I can only imagine what it was like for someone seeing that the first time and thinking it was a news broadcast, because I was, especially towards the end, absolutely glued to the screen.
Oh yeah.
And the jump scares that were done, I probably would have been freaking out as a viewer.
Yes.
I just love when movies go from so subtle to just banana batshit later on, and it's just it was unrelentless the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. They really amped it. I don't want to say 0 to 60, but maybe 20 to 60. Because they had some good moments. They had really good tension, but it was so natural. I was just watching, I guess it would be a PBS show for American
or
folk.
Dateline or something like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I didn't watch a lot of Dateline as a kid, but okay.
When it's on.
I think that if it wasn't so subtle, that it would have appeared fake.
Yeah.
So the fact that it was chill, oh fuck.
Well, I wonder how long it took to really choreograph all that and really set up all the scenes, and because it was so subtle what they did, but it didn't look subtle the way that, and it was 92.
Yeah.
It was 92.
I mean, the only other thing that is from that magnitude would be War of the Worlds, the radio broadcast that scared everyone into thinking that aliens had invaded. This had people in England upset. People were traumatized. There were lawsuits and complaints.
There's an unaliving.
Yeah.
That's just incredible to me. I can't even wrap my head around that.
Imagine being the filmmakers and living with that the rest of your life.
Oh my gosh. And didn't they had the number on screen to call, and that was the real number, and then you got phone calls, but it got to the point where they were just this isn't real.
No, that's how they answered the phone. They literally answered the phone with, "Hi, the show you're watching isn't real," and then they let them talk anyway.
Yeah.
And
it's exceptionally well acted. It was very, very well acted. It was extremely well done. And this is something that's just absolutely kind of out of left field, but a holiday special gone horribly awry.
Yeah.
We're focusing in the beginning on how cute the set is, and oh my god, I love this little living room with this cute ghost.
It's gonna be spooky.
We're gonna see a costume parade with these kids in these masks. It was very well done in the realism, which I think is why it's so effective as horror.
Well, and obviously, years later, I'm sitting here, I know it's fake, clearly, but it's so easy for a fraction of a second to be wait, but that's the real, that's what is his name? Michael, he's not an actor.
I think they said that the parapsychologist was a stage actress. And other people that are on the show are used to being on camera. So, traditional what we think of an actor or not, they are still personalities. They are still acting.
But they're really they're the real life. They're what they do in their real life. Wasn't it just him and then the crew was real?
The crew was real.
Yes. But was everybody else an actor?
Everyone except for the parapsychologist was not.
Okay.
She was a stage actress.
And the family and the kids were actors.
Yes.
Okay.
But the presenters were real presenters.
Yeah, they were all part of the BBC.
Okay, yeah, okay. Ooh.
I mean, the way that they did it is what we look for in horror, where we are trying to have that thing that draws you in, where you think that this is a haunting, that we are witnessing, that we are part of it. It's very authentic that people are having these experiences at home, not only are they noticing things on screen, which is what we would be when you call into like a radio show or you leaving comments on a YouTube or like on a Twitch, you're just like, oh my God, did you see this in the background? And then you have people that are calling in with their own paranormal experiences from the past, but then also, hey, why is real life happening? Which I love that they at first were like, all right, prank call, prank call, prank call, especially since so early on, the mom talks about being dismissed.
Mm.
They're just dismissing people left and right. They're like, nah, everyone's a liar.
Yeah.
The tie-in to the movie we just watched, the brand new release of Late Night with the Devil, there were so many similarities that I'm really glad we're watching these movies so close, because it was just like, oh my gosh, that.
I didn't even the pacing, the setup, like, and the payoff was just so similar, and not like a ripoff, but like you could tell the inspiration that went behind that. I really, really, really dug this movie a lot. Like, it scared me a lot more than I thought it would, and I don't get scared very easily, but it's that subtlety. It's the, not saying like, oh, stop that, what's there? It's like the curtain, for example, the first time that you see Mr. Pipes, that
which I didn't see,
scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, I didn't see Mr. Pipes
apparently,
the first time.
Yeah, he's there how many times? I forgot.
13.
Like 13, and I saw him maybe twice, and then it just makes a rewatch so much more exciting. Like
I've watched this movie at least 5 or 6 times now, at least, I think, because we usually watch it every Halloween, and so now I went into this knowing that I'm trying to find more Mr. Pipes.
Right.
And
show me the pipes.
I want
Show
you
me
can
the
always
pipes.
have more Mr. Pipes.
So it's like I think I saw 4 times. That's the most I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But then now we know there's a few more to look for.
Oh, I'm so excited. And then you see everything that was inspired by it. Obviously, Haunting of Hill House was the first thing I thought of when you just see the ghost in the background, because that was like a prominent one today that people think of.
The Conjuring did it obviously with the Enfield haunting, and they take a lot from that. But there's a lot of found footage horror where you have a child, The Exorcist, a child being possessed, because children are easy targets, and of course there's definitely like scientific reasons when they're like, this is why kids are more open.
Right.
Kids, they're not as closed off as adults are. It's also scary when it's a kid, because you innocently are like, they're innocent.
They're so pure. They have nothing to gain. They're not trying to get famous as a kid.
But I did like in this when, obviously they're trying to debunk it. The show does not go into it trying to debunk it, but that is a part of it. So the shot of the kid faking it, which was almost creepy in its own. Because I was like, it's her, but it's not.
It catches you off guard.
Yeah.
That was really creepy.
But she's like, I had to. The demon told me I had to.
Okay.
Because they catch her faking it. I think they did this in The Conjuring as well.
They did, but it was more like they wanted the film, like they wanted everyone to stay so they weren't alone with a ghost, if I'm correct.
Okay.
Well, this is kind of what they said too, is like we had to make you stay.
Yeah.
The girls, they say that, like, we had to make you stay.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm kind of thinking it's like, maybe the 4 movies this month of coverage that we're doing aren't found footage. So what are they? If they're not documentaries and they're not found footage, what is this subgenre?
It's like its own little mini class of subgenre, and I love it. Yeah, because
broadcast horror.
I actually was going to say broadcast horror,
because I feel like the easy place to put it would be found footage, because that's just like the go-to that people.
Well, it is footage.
It's footage, but it's not found. It was like
it's
presented
live.
in live.
So yeah, maybe we can. You heard it here first. Broadcast horror.
Broadcast horror.
Hashtag broadcast. Is that what the kids do?
The kids.
The youths. Is that what the youths do?
The youth.
Not the current youths. I think that's the elder youths.
The elder.
You're gonna get canceled so fast.
I'm so sorry. Am I the one that's gonna?
Hi, fellow kids.
Before we even start. This is our last slumber party, guys.
But I mean, all of that is when you're watching a movie, but it's enough that it can trick your brain into being like, this is kind of real.
Right.
And I think that's what makes good found footage effective.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you're like, this actually could happen, and it's not, as we said before, when the subtleties of it are what, because your brain is always going to come up with something scarier than what's on the screen.
Right.
Oh, that's why, like, when we were watching it, when I was like, the apples are gonna be something. The apples, because like you just
You see them at the end.
Right, that's true. It kind of was.
They were definitely gonna swing, but like if we're looking at it as horror creators looking at it, it's like, okay, well, I see a hole on a string, and if I was making something Conjuring style, I would have the ghost peering through a hole of an apple.
Right.
Like,
I saw something different.
okay, girl. But like when we, as creators, we look for things like that. Oh my God, we're never gonna get past.
It was a reaction. I'm referencing to what I saw.
Okay, you are allowed.
It's a callback.
You are allowed to see your.
I'm not going to specifics. I'm trying to be respectful.
Okay.
Go on.
Alyssa's on the naughty list.
Yeah. I'm gonna turn off this mic.
I got fired.
So while we were watching the film, not only are we comparing it to other found footage movies, we're comparing it to other paranormal movies.
Broadcast horror.
Broadcast horror.
No, I'm saying, yes, we were comparing it to, but in the genre of broadcast horror, when we specifically think of Late Night with the Devil, which is the modern version of this, it's when he's looking towards the end of Late Night with the Devil, and he's like, turn off the TV. Yeah, and I remember the paranormal investigator she's just like, record this, write this down, see where they address the audience, they break that fourth wall, because they're supposed to be, but not in the sense of scripted. It's a separate, it's almost like you're pleading with a person that you can't see. You're pleading with the viewer at home. It was like, oh my God, I will for you. I will record my findings for science. But even the characters that we're watching in this have their parallels.
Right.
With Jeff Goldblum.
British
not Jeff Goldblum.
So there's British Helen Hunt. There's British
American Goldblum-esque.
Yes, who looked like
cynic.
Michael McAllister dad. He looked like Kevin McAllister's dad.
We have the host.
We have the Jew.
The
The author.
British Helen Hunt.
Yeah.
Parapsychologist author.
We kind of have the sidekick guy, but because he's manning the phones, but he is doing commentary.
Yes.
So he's the in-studio sidekick, I'll say.
The love child of Jordan Peele and who was it? It was
The
Jordan
guy from
Peele.
No Doubt.
Tony.
Yeah, Tony.
Who's also the sidekick. I think the not in-studio sidekick.
The the hype man, the very energetic gentleman.
He was Gus.
He was Gus. He was
a Gus.
He was a Gus.
Which do you guys prefer? Ghostwatch or Late Night with the Devil?
I mean, for me, they're different enough. Like, it's just, they're different enough for me to see them differently. Like, there's not one I like more than the other, but there are things about both that I really, really appreciated. Like, I loved the aesthetic of Late Night with the Devil. As I mentioned before, I am just a glutton for the 70s aesthetic, for the occult. So, and the costuming in that movie, just the design, everything was beautiful. That was my favorite part of that. But Ghostwatch, I just love the authenticity of it. Like how, I love that. It's just,
I'm gonna be real here. I think the Ghostwatch is better directed.
Yeah.
And I think the script is better because the things that work for Ghostwatch and for the authenticity are the cameras have a purpose.
Yeah.
At all times. At every single moment of that movie, the camera is pointed somewhere because it's supposed to be.
That's true.
And with Late Night with the Devil, I personally feel like all the black and white stuff that cut to commercial footage, that wouldn't exist. It just wouldn't. There's no way that you'd have these perfectly lined up shots of people talking because no one's filming that.
I think that was supposed to be the artistic choice of like representing.
It is.
So
These cameramen are literally going to be smoking their cigarette and getting their coffee for their 3-minute break.
I would have loved to see that.
They're like, why did my cigarette light itself?
There's no they didn't have to do like any intimate like dialogue. I just would have loved to see people just be like, did you get that?
But like see if I were making that film, I think my choice would have been the camera's still on but it's turned to the side and you see the cameraman half in frame and you get a little bit of Des Malchian having
really
that conversation in the background out of focus.
That would have been
like
dope.
Because that feels more authentic.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, watching them a week apart, I think that was my takeaway of like I liked Late Night with the Devil. I don't think it's a bad movie, but comparatively as genre to genre, as inspiration to the modern version, Ghostwatch holds up better. And it's scary. It's scary. Like as a group of desensitized horror fans, we were all freaked out watching
and like
a
in
lot of
retrospect,
jumps.
we talk spoilers, right?
Mhm.
This is the spoiler zone.
I think in the spoiler, because they describe Mr. Pipes, like what he looks like, right? He's like burned or
No, he's not burned.
He was
eaten.
The cat's
He's
in his
eaten by
face.
cats.
And when
My cat would never eat my
when
face.
100% they would.
oh,
Food is food, man.
it's true. I'm thinking of the scenes when Jordan Peele, No Doubt Tony, was like talking, and everybody's in costumes, and then my eye kept going to one in the back. I'm like, what the hell costume is that? Like, do people dress up
wish
weird?
I'd seen that.
Didn't
I'm
even
gonna go
notice
back.
that.
And see, I didn't notice it until it was pointed out to me, and then it was pointed out, and then I was like, oh, like it was like one of those retrospect chills. Like, he was just there, and I love that. You don't notice that he was just there, and you don't notice like, oh.
But that's why it works. That's
I love
that's
that.
when
I love
found footage, when broadcast horror, broadcast horror, is at its best. When it's not the subtlety, you gotta trust your audience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta
Yeah.
I don't need to be spoon fed scares.
Yeah, we're more intelligent than I think a lot of people think.
No, but in general,
It's
that
true,
is
it's
something
true.
when the difference between fun horror, campy horror, and like horror, like good horror, is when you have that respect for your audience.
Yes.
But I won't. If I look at it just from Ghostwatch, Late Night with the Devil, Late Night with the Devil is a beautiful film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ghostwatch is a fucking nightmare.
Yes, it is. It really is. It's
Ghostwatch
so
is something
anxiety.
that I would actually.
Yeah.
I would be terrified if that happened to me, and I
Yeah.
could see it happening.
Late Night with the Devil is a higher stakes storyline because it's not just like this haunting is happening, and then at the end they're like, we made this happen. We created this. It's getting worse. We created a seance, and it's affecting other people.
Yeah, I love that.
Which Late Night with the Devil, that seemed to be like them. It was like, oh my God, we didn't mean to do this. But with Late Night with the Devil, I was like, that was the whole point.
Right.
Satan wanted to infect as many people as possible, which is why that creepy little shit was like, which camera do I look at? This one? Like, but like when you see it, I don't know. I can respect them separately for I think they both accomplished what they were trying to do. Ghostwatch is intimate. Late Night with the Devil is a stage. It's a sound stage. You know that it's this whole, it's a performance. And everything that they do is a performance. Versus Late Night with the Devil, it's not supposed to be a performance. Right. It's just supposed to be something that we're witnessing.
Right. You mean Ghostwatch?
Yeah. Ghostwatch is something. Yes.
That took me a second to register.
I know, I was like, what?
I know, you're looking at me, I was like, what did I say wrong? No, okay, Ghostwatch is something we are witnessing.
Right.
Late Night with the Devil is a performance.
In a critical mindset of, one movie that was inspired by the other, and their effectiveness is what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm not saying,
Oh, no.
No, and everybody, there could be people watching who really disliked both, and that's okay.
Then there's a reason.
Totally awesome.
Well, we looked on Shudder, and Ghostwatch has 3 skulls out of 5, and it's like rude.
Interesting. Okay.
It is rude.
To each their own.
But also that's very typical of found footage. That it's not
So
normally
divisive.
like I like it.
Yeah.
It's love it or I hate it.
So
I think that found footage in general is more challenging.
yeah.
You have to really sit and pay attention. You have to critical think while you're watching it.
Yeah.
And, it's like watching The Conjuring versus Blair Witch. Like,
Right.
if it's a different audience and it's not going to appeal to everybody.
It can't appeal. I mean, you want to talk about it's not the same as what we were watching, but you compare like a Blair Witch, it's just you're watching something where someone is running and the camera is shaking, and then Blair Witch did it, and it was like, okay, well, Blair Witch did it, but then anyone else who tried to do the same thing, it was kind of like,
well,
I can't look at this.
The funny thing is, the creators of Blair Witch were inspired by Ghostwatch. Like, they've said it in several interviews. So,
I didn't even realize that.
like,
It all comes full circle.
there's all of this, like, debate over what was the first found footage.
Right.
Like, people are like, was it Ghostwatch? Was it Blair Witch? Was it Cannibal Holocaust? Like, there's all kinds of debate over,
Yeah.
like,
Well, and I also I kept thinking a lot about Paranormal Activity too, in terms of just the simplicity of it. Literally, all you just see is a door go, boop, and it's so effective. The simplicity of it. Yeah.
Well, and then Paranormal Activity did a really good job of it, of hiding, using lesser known, filming in someone's house, the director's house.
I don't know if you've seen the documentary of it, but it's really interesting hearing the actors talk about the audition process and like Orton Pelly just being like, well, I didn't know how to make a movie, but I did a lot of research, and so I tried to like get them to audition. And if you haven't seen it, I suggest it. It's really cool.
It was Steven Spielberg that got involved with that movie, right?
I think he endorsed it.
No, I believe he came
on.
They got some money for reshoots.
Yeah,
and if you look, the shots where she's got like more cleavage and stuff, I'm like, those are the reshoots.
Well, and also the ending that I think everyone's familiar with, and that was the reshoot, right?
Yeah.
There were 2 other really awesome endings.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's endings of movies are. I mean, specifically talking about endings, the similarities between Late Night and the Devil and the ending of Ghostwatch, the camera moving specifically. I remember that part of like the rogue camera just going by, and the wind, the electricity.
Yes.
So because they're both technically on a sound stage, there were so many similarities with that.
Yeah.
And the chaos that's ensuing. And if you've ever been in a live studio audience, it's kind of like, oh, you are kind of trapped there.
Right.
You don't really know, like, the exits. Like,
right.
They're like, exits are in there.
No,
but, like, if something actually went down...
Right.
Yeah, people would be losing their shit and running everywhere.
In stadium seating... it's
hard to get out of.
Which I think Late Night with the Devil did a good job of actually showing what people would be doing, is they'd be flipping out. I don't think there was a live audience. There's not a live audience with Ghostwatch.
They don't show them, no.
The utter chaos and... I love that, that guy that I'm like, oh my god, this guy is over the top. This hype man is going crazy. But then in the end, he's just sitting there like, I can't spin this.
Yeah.
I wish I knew you were cutting to me. I'm not on right now.
But that's why it works. Because he's like, ah, and then you see him, he's like fucking pushing a kid out of the way.
Right.
And he's just like, I didn't know you were on me. Ah.
Yeah, there was a violence against children.
That like quick cut of him going, psh.
And the mom being like, well, I mean, if I would have beat her. I was just like,
dialogue. Different times, guys. Different times.
Yeah.
Baby farmers.
Baby farmers. Baby farmers and childminders.
Those glory holes, man.
That too.
The glory holes.
That too. I was like, is that really what they
I
call
tried
them?
to be so mature. I tried to be so
No,
respectful. Well, after like the 4th time they said it, I just tried, but I just...
Absolutely not.
I had the little kid like...
It's okay. You're allowed to be you, man.
Come on.
Yeah.
Americans hear
Just
that
don't
differently.
deny it. There's
I don't know.
0% chance every time something you said, like, glory hole was said, you're just over there being like...
I mean, is a glory hole... I mean...
No, it was
is
weird.
That different in the UK?
I'd never heard it described that way. I was just kind of like, so it's a cellar, but also like, what's with these tiny door cellars underneath the stairs?
And they
I don't
said
love
it
that.
so seriously and so like just proper, and there was nothing, obviously nothing funny about it, but that's what made it funnier.
But okay, so basements though, I'm from the Midwest, so we had a basement.
I've
never had a basement because I'm from California.
Exactly.
So,
that's a weird California thing where I was like, y'all don't have basements? Basements are the best.
I've never
they talk
been in a
about
basement.
her husband having a dark room in the basement. I had a dark room in the basement growing up.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
yeah, I've never been in a basement before.
No, basements are terrifying. You think of any movie that has a good basement scene, so like Conjuring, the first Conjuring,
that
It,
was
the
one that
remake,
came to my mind.
yeah,
Yes.
Evil Dead.
Evil Dead.
Always Evil Dead. And and Evil Dead 2013.
Yeah.
Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin in the Woods.
Child's
Evil
Play
basements.
2. Friday the 13th 4.
Because so many of us grew up with that.
Huh?
Stepfather?
Stepfather has a basement
He
too.
did. Yeah, he was. Yep. That's where and that the basement is where technically the Paranormal Activity was centered.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it interesting that it was the dad's space and the dad left.
Yeah.
But they don't really talk about like why he left.
Yeah.
They don't. They're not like they talk about how when who they think the ghost is when he's living in the basement where he's not supposed to be living, and that's why he's not on records. He has a room in the basement and he goes crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So did something happen to the dad and he had to leave because maybe he was like thinking something crazy.
Ooh.
He was starting to think about like probably malicious thoughts toward his children and he couldn't deal with it. He was younger, right? Or no, they didn't. Did they say his age? I don't know if they said the age of the...
For some reason, I thought they said he was middle-aged.
Middle-aged? Well, maybe... Well, and that makes me think of Amityville because the dad is the one who's having issues. He was older, yeah, because he's like bald and all that.
Yeah.
I was thinking the kid because I was thinking that today.
Yeah.
But like how a haunting affects people differently.
Mm-hmm.
If it scares kids and it can feed off fear of children and it harms children, but it can possess a male. And when you think about Amityville and why like certain things like that are so scary, it's like the person who's supposed to be the protector is then going after and the mom can't do anything. And the way that the mom feels in this, where she does feel like entirely powerless, completely powerless to protect her own children.
Right.
But so now that we've seen it, just talking about the haunt itself, do you feel like it is a ghost? It is a haunted house? Or do you feel like it's an entity? What was the energy? What was the vibe that you were getting towards the end?
I think it's an entity. Like it's.
I don't know what the difference is. Like a demon or
no, not a demon, but like the house is evil, like an Amityville or a Shining, versus an entity that is taking over and doing. What's the movie where the kid?
I was gonna say.
No, the entity. No, no, the movie. It's more modern where the teenage son has leukemia and he goes in the basement.
Haunting in Connecticut.
Yeah, Haunting in Connecticut, where it takes over this sick kid.
We stand Kyle Gallner.
Huge fan.
Come on.
That's what I would say is it's not the house that's haunted, it's an entity in the house. Versus Amityville is the house.
Yeah.
There was so much of it where I was like, this is it's really well done, and I can see so many different movies and I'm like, yeah, they got it.
Well, on that note, I think someone's here.
We are joined today by writer, director, producer extraordinaire Paul Davis, all the way from the UK. Woo! Not only is Paul an incredible genre creator, bringing us such movies such as Uncanny Annie and The Body, which is part of the Into the Dark series on Hulu. If you have not seen it, you should check it out. But he is also a published author and journalist specializing in retrospectives on horror, history, and production. He has graced us with writings from Horror Hound and Fangoria magazine. He's written the literal book on one of my favorites of all time, The Lost Boys, and made the quintessential American Werewolf in London documentary, Beware the Moon, Remembering American Werewolf in London. And one more amazing thing about Mr. Paul Davis. He just so happens to be an expert on tonight's movie, which is Ghostwatch, if you could not tell. Welcome to Pillow Fright, our slumber party, Paul. Yay!
Thank you.
Thanks for crashing.
Don't tell my mom, boys aren't allowed.
I'm worried that my deep voice is going to wake someone up.
No. Well, I mean, we hear deep voices a lot around here,
Okay.
so it's okay.
But we just put it down to the spooky infrasound.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just a ghost, Dad.
There
It's
you
just a
go.
ghost.
It's ghosty.
Don't say ghost dad.
Quiet.
Get
Ghost
cancelled.
dad. We're not going to talk about that.
Ugh.
Let's
Wrong
just-
movie.
Pudding pops.
Stop. Well, anyway, here on our slumber parties, we like asking all of our guests the most meaty questions that we can ask you. First one being, what was the first horror film that you remember ever watching?
I mean, it's not hard for me to go back and remember because I've had this interestingly enough, I have this conversation with wrestlers more than I have with actual genre fans. Yeah, because whenever I meet, because I'm a big wrestling fan as well, and whenever I meet wrestlers, specifically when they do like horror conventions, they're always astounded as to how horror fans are so diehard about wrestling, but can also tell you like the first match they ever watched and where they were and all this kind of stuff.
Huh.
And I always have to say, that's because we do the same thing as horror fans. We know exactly what our first horror movie was, where we were when we watched it, how old we were.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I'm wearing the socks. I don't know if you can get that.
Yes.
Nice.
Michael Jackson's Thriller was my gateway into horror.
Yes.
Okay.
And that led me to An American Werewolf in London because quite famously in the 80s, the making of Michael Jackson's Thriller was the very first sell-through VHS that you could buy. And in the making of sequence, obviously they talk about An American Werewolf in London and the inspiration that Michael Jackson saw that and wanted to turn into a monster. So they had clips from American Werewolf in that. And it just so happened that when we got the video, literally like 2 weeks later, February 1985, I think it was, An American Werewolf in London had its UK television premiere on BBC One.
Oh.
And so my parents recorded it for me. And my brother, who's 7 years older, he was watching it from behind the couch, but I was just sat in front of the TV, glued to this fucking monster, and I just fell in love with it. And from there, you know, I became the atypical 80s video store kid. And, you know, I was the 5 or 6 year old that was in the horror section just because the covers were just...
See, that seems to be the gateway for, I think, a lot of us major horror addicts, was just the VHS covers.
Yeah, because you didn't know what the movies were, but because they were so colourful, they were so gregarious, you were just drawn to them. Like, I can remember vividly being in the horror section of my local video store, which was called Movie Town, on the Brighton Road in South London, in Croydon, and seeing that front cover for The Shining, and seeing Jack Nicholson's mug in that Here's Johnny still, and the other side of the panel being the axe coming through with Shelley Duvall looking terrified, not knowing what the hell that movie was. But goddamn, I wanted to see it.
Was that the cover that scared you the most?
No. Funnily enough, the cover that always, like whenever I saw it, even got to the point where I'd have to turn it around while I was in the video store, was Carrie. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen the UK Warner Home Video cover for Carrie. It was a publicity still that was taken in the house at the end of the movie when she's come back from the prom with all the candles and everything. But it's fully lit.
Oh, shit.
It's fully lit, bright, harsh light, and it's Sissy Spacek just standing there with the eyes wide open.
Oof.
And it's all there for you to see. There's no shadows, there's nothing is hidden, it's right there. And seeing that at like 5 or 6 years old was quite startling. But the first movie that really did it, that really solidified my love for horror, and you're gonna love this, because I saw no context whatsoever when I watched it. A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge.
Yes! You know what, when you're younger, there's something about the dream sequences, and especially in the earlier films, that like, it's just really, no pun intended, it's very uncanny.
I wholeheartedly believe, and I'm going to get a lot of shit in your comment section for this, but I actually think Freddy in Part 2 is the scariest he is.
I agree!
Across the entire series, and I include the first one.
I agree, and give shit. It's okay. People have their opinions, but his makeup was like a wig.
The Kevin Yeager makeup in Part 2 is incredible,
so
absolutely incredible. But I love the idea of Freddy using. I mean, where do you go from the first one? The first one establishes the rules. You go into a dream. If you die in your dream, you die for real. So how do you elevate that? So I love the idea of, you know, Freddy using someone as an avatar while they're awake to get at people, and I kind of feel like the idea and the concept of Elm Street 2 is a lot better than the execution.
I agree.
I kind of feel like if Jesse suffered from narcolepsy and couldn't control the fact that he could fall asleep at any given point, and Freddy took advantage of that, would have been a lot better. Ooh. And there's a wonderful moment where he kills Robert Rustler. He kills Grady in that really sexually charged moment in the bedroom.
Such a great scene.
Where they use the reflection, they use mirrors to show that Freddy is Jesse and Jesse is Freddy. Now, the biggest problem that a lot of people have with that movie is the pool party sequence, because it idealizes Freddy being in the real world.
Yeah.
All they needed to do, one shot, Freddy, at the moment where the guy's trying to reason with him, you see the reflection in the pool and it's Jesse.
Oh, that would have been so sick.
Yeah.
That would have been so good. Well,
easy fix.
Get on the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. Not just in general, just Part 2. The remake of Part 2.
That literally wouldn't even, just remake that one scene.
Just that one bit, just one shot, put it in the movie.
One of my favorite lines in the entire franchise. It's like my favorite part of anything. Was like, it's okay, man. We're here. We'll help you. Help yourself, fucker. That's my favorite line of the entire
But it's funny you mention that, because before I saw the video, Do you guys are you aware of there was a British satire sketch show with puppets in the UK called Spitting Image?
Yes.
And it was all political satire. It was kind of like Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, but with puppets.
Yes.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And they were really really over the top puppets, you know, super stylized. In fact, if you watch the Genesis song Land of Confusion, which Disturbed then later brilliantly covered.
Yep.
The video
I don't like
was
that video at all.
the Spitting Image puppets.
I don't like it at all.
That was done by Spitting
It's
Image.
terrifying.
So we used to watch that religiously. It was on every Sunday night, and we used to record it, and then we'd watch it every Monday morning before school. October 1986, we're watching it, and it gets to the ad break, and there's this trailer for this thing called A Nightmare on Elm Street. Who is Freddy? Who the fuck does he want revenge on? I'm there for it. But it was that one moment at the end of the trailer. You are all my children now.
I love that.
Yep. It's a great trailer.
I was a child. Who is
So
this
that was
person I now
terrifying.
belong to?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Mom.
So that was the moment. I became obsessed with that one little TV spot.
I love that.
And then going past the video store, I saw the poster, the really famous Graham Humphreys poster. And then we finally got it, and I watched it, and I was obsessed from there. Then it was Friday the 13th. It was Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead. It was everything.
Well, piggybacking off of that, so then what was the scariest movie that you have
Like the
ever
first
seen?
one that
the
ever
first one
scared
that
you.
like you
That messed
remember?
you up
Yeah.
a bit.
Well, I mean, I kind of guess we're going to talk about it anyway, but it was Ghostwatch.
Really?
Yeah.
I can see that because we sat here as
Yeah.
adults watching it,
Being
and
like,
Yeah.
what the?
we're like,
If-
oh my god, I have
If,
chills.
if you don't want me to touch upon that yet, if I like, there's a single image that I can remember really screwing with my head as a kid, and I always associate it to being sick or being ill because I think I was ill at the time I watched it for the first time. And it's Piper Laurie's performance in Carrie as Margaret White, but specifically the shot after she stabbed Carrie. And she comes down the stairs, and we see Carrie's POV, and she's smiling, and she does the cross.
Yes.
With the
Oh
knife.
It's-
man.
yeah.
And I just like just the subversion of the mother, who's supposed to protect you,
Yeah.
killing her own daughter. It was.
Didn't she play that as a comedy? Like she thought that.
Yeah, she didn't understand
which is
the script.
amazing. to
She didn't
think.
understand
Yeah.
the script at all. I mean, bearing in mind she'd been retired for 15 years.
Yeah.
She hadn't made a movie since The Hustler with Paul Newman in 1960.
Oh wow.
So she'd retired and she moved off to upstate New York, and Brian De Palma sent her the script and she read it. She didn't get it, and then her husband kind of said, well, he's kind of known for doing comedies, which was true at the time. If you look at some of his earlier stuff with Robert De Niro, like Hi Mom, The Wedding Party, those are comedies. Phantom of Paradise is a comedy, So when she reread the script thinking, am I supposed to play this funny? She got it immediately. And when she turned up on the set, she thought she was doing something that was satire.
And that just goes to show how you can.
But it's still a brilliant
Yeah.
performance. I mean,
She got nominated for an Academy Award.
yeah.
They
I mean,
both
that's
did.
why comedy's amazing. Comedy's not funny. You treat it seriously,
Mhm.
and you get the best results, and then you get
Well, this is the
terrifying
thing.
results.
This is the thing. If she's playing it for comedy, and everybody else is playing it straight, there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Piper Laurie is amazing, and that reminds me, we want the hottest goss ever, Paul. We need to know, who's your first horror crush?
Well, that's not too difficult
It's not
because
Piper
Laurie.
Laurie.
That's why I asked, because it wasn't
Mommy
it was,
issues.
It was,
well, you got me there.
Oh.
No, it's still from Carrie. The character of Chris Hargensen, played by Nancy Allen.
Oh. So you like
Yeah.
the bitches?
Oh, I just thought
Like
she
a
was
mean.
I thought she was super dreamy, and I don't want to be that fucking name dropping guy. But when I was here in 2014, I had dinner with her, and it was the first time I met her.
Oh, is she great?
And I had written the Hall of Fame induction for Carrie into Horror Hound magazine several years prior, and she told me that she'd read it.
Oh my gosh!
No, not oh my gosh. Because I immediately just turned beetroot red because I knew what was coming.
You turned 16.
I knew what was coming. I gave her a special shout out at the fact that Chris Hargensen is one of like all of the things that Carrie does in the movie has nothing on the fact that Chris Hargensen gives Billy Nolan head and has a full dialogue as she is doing
Billy!
so. She is
That's
talking.
so weird.
That's talent.
Wait,
She's a ventriloquist.
I hate Carrie White.
Like fuck telekinesis. That's the magic
you
in the
know what?
movie.
That's impressive. That's
So
very
what did
impressive.
she say?
She thanked me for it. The fact that I acknowledged it, and I was, you're welcome.
No one appreciates
I'm
my
sorry.
skill. Thank
Listen,
you.
I'd be very proud of that. I'm sorry, Mom.
I mean, that's a hell of a ventriloquist act. Right there.
For the Vegas stage.
For the Vegas.
Did
It's
she-
all for the Vegas.
Did she give you any gossip about like De Palma and her?
No, not really. I mean, she just said that because they got together during that movie, and also Steven Spielberg got together with Amy Irving on that movie.
I didn't know that.
Oh, this is such gossip.
Man.
Yeah. I actually have a fun story, which is a bit of a side note, but I know these are the kind of stories you want.
Yes.
Right.
Please.
So on an American Werewolf in London, they're shooting the sequence in the London Underground, and there's a shot in the deleted scenes on the DVD where you see that they actually had the full werewolf suit there, but obviously in the movie it's just all POV where he's chasing the guy who played Bib Fortuna in Return of the Jedi through the tunnels, and so they were setting up the wolf because they shot a bunch of stuff. They even shot one sequence where they actually had a dog in a werewolf costume because he wanted the legs.
Oh.
Landis denies it to this day, but it's on the fucking call sheet.
Gosh.
So Amy Irving was in London. She came to visit the set, and apparently she just split from Spielberg at the first time. And one of the makeup guys was working on the wolf, and everybody had a crush on Amy Irving when she fucking walks through the door. And Landis is like introducing everybody in his animated way, and just turns around, and this is Kevin. He's single, and he's just like, hey.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. I did
gotta love
not
that.
know that. I love the hot goss. I
Yeah.
love it.
That's what are slumber parties for, if not
Exactly.
for gossip?
Yeah.
And it's gossip that's 40 years old. Everybody's over it by now.
Yeah. Spoilers territory, though. We're going to talk about spoilers from 40 years old. No, I'm just kidding. I want to know, and I think we all want to know here, now that we're getting into the meat of it, what got you into filmmaking to begin with?
To be honest with you, it happened very, very late. I think the first film, which was Beware the Moon, I was 27 when I did that.
Really?
Yeah, I'm from the arsehole end of South London when nothing happens. So I had no notion that because I went to university, I have a degree in cinema history, which is like the greatest thing you can tell your parents that you want to study. So, and what are you going to do with that? Supermarkets.
You know?
Because they weren't happy. They weren't happy when I did it. But I just started getting into writing at that point. So I figured, the more I can learn about this thing that I love and have loved since I was a kid, I don't want to do the whole fake it to make it kind of thing. And as this goes on, once we get into the Ghostwatch of it, you will know just how dedicated I am to my craft. So that was the first step. I was like, okay, I'll do a degree, bum, 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 bum. Started writing for Horror Hound magazine, and because I was the token Brit on the staff, it was the 25th anniversary of An American Werewolf in London, and I got asked to do a retrospective article on that. So I started putting out interview requests, and Horror Hound was still in its first year, so nobody wasn't particularly excited to grant interviews at that point. So I reached out to David Norton. He agreed to do it very begrudgingly, but it was like one sentence answers.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not the way to do it. But as I was writing the article, And this is 2006, so we're talking about the heyday of like DVD extras.
Yeah.
I mean, by that point, I think we'd already had like 5 versions of Evil Dead with different
Yes.
documentaries
Oh,
on
yeah.
each one.
Yep.
And there'd already been the 2001 DVD release of An American Werewolf in London, which it had a few pieces on it, but it just covered the same stuff. It was John Landis and it was Rick Baker, and it was just, is it a horror or a comedy, or let's talk about the transformation? And that was it. I want to know what David Norton has to say. I want to know what Griffin Dunn has to say.
Yeah.
I want to know what Jenny Agutter has to
Yeah.
say. That's going back to First Crushes as well. Yeah. So that was like a eureka moment. I was like, fuck, if nobody else is going to do this documentary, why don't I? And then it was like, okay, but how? Because I didn't know anybody who was, and it was just this serendipitous thing where I went away to a convention like literally 2 weekends later, and the stars just must have aligned because I met a guy there that lived in like 20 minutes from me, who had just set up his own production company. He had his own HD camera, which in 2007 was a big deal. He was an editor. He had lights. He basically did everything so that the two of us could just then go and do interviews and start putting this thing together.
Wow.
And we were very drunk at the bar. And I said, are you a fan of An American Werewolf in London? He said, yes. By the way, it's Anthony Bueno. He did the Cleaning Up the Town, the Ghostbusters documentary that came out a few years ago. Yeah, I said, are you a fan of American Werewolf? He said, yes. Are you a fan of documentaries? Yes. Would you like to make one? Yes. On An American Werewolf in London? Yes. So we kind of sealed the deal over a couple of shots, and then, like, when I came back to London, I reached out to him because he gave me his card, and literally 3 weeks later, we were in Jenny Agutter's dressing room when she was in Equus with Daniel Radcliffe on the West End. So that was the first one.
The horse fuck.
The
The
horse
horse
fuck.
fuck.
Right. That's
Yeah.
the original title.
And that was a great show as well. That was Jenny
Yeah.
Agutter, Daniel Radcliffe, Richard Griffith
amazing.
as well,
Wow.
Uncle Monty from
They're all
Harry Potter. It was a
naked in
great
that
show.
one, aren't
And Radcliffe was fucking great in it.
they? Yeah,
He's
I love
honestly,
him.
I think he's
love him.
fabulous,
Mhm.
like in everything.
And I love the choices he makes.
Horns.
See, this is the
Yes.
thing. This is
Yeah.
the thing. This is before any of those choices have been established.
Yeah.
He was still Harry at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
was like
wow.
his departure, his like
Yeah.
brave move.
We
Like,
saw his
Showed
magic
it-
wand.
we sure did. And
Good
it was a
for
little
him.
chody.
But that's how you break out. You're like, and now I am no longer a child actor. I am showing
I am
my
a
peen.
chody boy.
He had to get full Patronus to
Oh my
break out of that.
gosh.
But anyway, yeah. So we did Jenny Agutter. Wait, no, we interviewed Jenny Agutter. Let me clarify.
Well, then
Let me
now we're
clarify.
getting into it.
Then we interviewed John Woodvine, Dr. Hirsch, blah, 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 tons of other people. Then I had the courage to reach out to John Landis because I'd already interviewed like 10 people, and I lied to all of them about what we were doing. I said, yeah, it's going to be on the DVD, it's going to be on Channel 4. None of them checked. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I just turned up with a camera and was like, yeah, this is legit. There's
Those
two
were
of
the
us.
days, man.
It's fucking two of
Those
us.
days.
So, one of my favourite people in the world, and I love him to this day, Mick Garris, put me in touch with...
Wonderful human.
I see him walking a lot.
Yeah,
He's a wizard.
He's a beautiful wizard.
yeah, he's the nice guy of horror, and there is a reason for that.
And he believes in all of
he
us
does.
in like
Aw.
such a
He really
real
does.
way.
He
that's
really does.
incredible.
Because he knows I'm a big Tarantino fan, so I just met him for lunch like 4 days ago.
Tarantino?
No, Garris.
Oh
my God.
What?
But
Wait, why are we talking about that?
he took me to Casa Vega, which is in Once Upon a Time in
Yeah.
Hollywood.
Casa Vega, yep.
So,
Yep.
so Mick, I wrote an email. Mick forwarded it to John, and like 2 days later, I got a reply from John Landis.
Amazing.
Now, bearing in mind, remember I said earlier that my first introduction to horror was Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Mm-hmm.
The making of Thriller. I mean, John Landis is the first person I know of as a director. So to get his email drop in my
Wow.
inbox, I shit you not. You remember Homer Simpson drops on the floor and there's the. I literally did that. And like before I'd even read it, I just saw his name. It was like, oh shit, what if he's saying no? So I jumped on the computer and he's like, I'm very oh sorry, I will do voices. I'm very flattered that you want to do this, but you don't own the rights.
Oh my God, close your eyes.
To a documentary?
No, to American Werewolf in London.
why would you need to do a
to
documentary?
put clips. So he says to me, I think you're crazy, but thank you. So
I like
with
it.
that,
I like it.
we did some more interviews, and then periodically I would email John and tell him like who we interviewed today. And I remember specifically we interviewed Bob Painter, who was the cinematographer, who also then went on to do Thriller with John,
Yeah.
Three Amigos, Spies Like Us, Trading Places. And it was great, 'cause, like, there were these really obscure crew members that I would interview, and then I'd just, like, send the photo of, like, the two of us at the end of the day. I'd send it to John. Holy shit, I thought he was dead! You know? So it got to the point where John, he felt obligated to email me and say, look, I don't want you to carry on doing this if nothing is going to come of it. So if Universal agree to be a part of this, then we'll talk. So with that, I emailed Colleen Benn, who was the head of home entertainment at Universal for the longest time. And bearing in mind, this was 2007, and the Benicio del Toro Wolfman is already in production at this point. So if you know any studio, when they release a new title, they're going to put out all of related legacy titles. They're going to reissue them on DVD. So I knew that was coming. So I emailed Colleen Ben, and I told her what we were doing and what we'd already done, and that John was interested in being involved. And she was like, no, thank you. So I was like, okay. So I then called up the licensing department at Universal, and I said to this lovely young lady, how much would it cost me? And I pulled a number out of my arse. I said, how much would it cost me to license 18 minutes from An American Werewolf in London?
Yeah.
And almost as though, like, fucking, I'm talking to Stephen Hawking, she just threw out a number, and it was something like $120,000. And then it's one of the few times I got to relive my drama days. It's really big. Well, I guess that's that. She was like, what are you doing? I was like, well, I've done this documentary on American Werewolf in London, and we're doing it feature length, and we want to celebrate it, and I've got all these cast and crew. John Landis is involved. And home video don't want this? Are they nuts? I was like, well, you work with them, you tell me, you know. So like, what's the story? She's like, what's your email address? So I gave her my email address. She's like, if you don't hear from me in 30 minutes, just assume that it's not gone very well.
Oh, gosh.
That's the loveliest shit sandwich I've ever had, but thank you. Thank you very much. I shit you not, 30 minutes later, I get an email from her with an address for Universal saying, when it's finished, send it here. So I then forwarded that to Landis, and within 20 minutes I got a reply from him saying, great, I'm in London in 3 weeks, let's talk.
All right.
So that's literally how that happened.
Living the American dream.
Living the American Werewolf in London dream.
The American Werewolf in London dream. That's amazing.
So I met him 3 weeks later. He was in London. I'll never forget this. They did there was a sci-fi retrospective in London, and he was being honoured for his career, which is weird because he's not really done sci-fi, but I guess it was for werewolf. He was brought out. I'm sat in the audience, and the spotlight's on him. He sits in the chair and he goes, where's Paul? Is Paul Davis here?
Would you close
And I'm
your
just
eyes? John Landis is here. Just keep going. I have to close my
And
eyes.
I'm just
before I
like,
do that.
hi John, I'm over here. It's like, everybody go to Paul Davis's MySpace page. He's making a documentary on American Werewolf. He's fucking nuts, but go visit it anyway. So then we sat through it, and then when we came out, I was like, hey John, it's Paul. It's like, Paul, it grabs me. And from the lobby of the cinema all the way into the back of a black cab. And before I even ask where we're going, we're already in the back of this thing. It's like, we're going back to the hotel. You're going to tell me all about it. Okay.
Jeez.
So we had a disc. We'd cut together like a 10-minute thing of everybody that we'd interviewed. And we showed it to him. And just watching that bearded jaw drop. It was like, this is gold.
Wow.
There's no way Universal aren't going to want this.
Oh, man.
So what do you want from me? So I was like, well, we still don't have David Norton. We still don't have Griffin Dunn. we're in touch with Rick Baker. We think that's going well. And so he then just emailed everybody and was just like, be in this. Fine. Like, we went out to LA. We interviewed John, Rick, Malcolm Campbell, the editor, George Folsey, who was the producer. We did a bunch of Rick Baker's crew as well. The entire time, John's saying to me, you know, this isn't going to be easy. Like, there's no guarantee it's coming out. 2008. Because I was a DJ for 20 years as well, yeah. So I used to get very jolly when I DJ'd. I'm coming back, and I'm off my fucking nut, and I get an email from John when I'm on my way home. It's gonna be on the Blu-ray.
Oh my god.
So being as inebriated as I was, I called him. I was just like, "What the fuck? How? What? You just went from this might not happen to it's on the Blu-ray." I went into the head of home video, I dropped it on the desk and said, put it on the Blu-ray. To this day, I am certain that none of the people in home video actually fucking watched that documentary.
Oh my gosh.
And I was smart. Because everything that we had access to, I copied to my hard drive.
You got to.
Mm.
And that's where all the material for the book came later.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Smart.
Oh my god.
So that was my first movie.
Yay!
That's how it happened.
That is
And
a story.
we got the world premiere at Fright Fest in the UK, and the US premiere was at the New Bev.
Oh,
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Which is probably great for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was unbelievable.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't think Tarantino had bought it at the time.
No.
Mm.
Or he was still a silent partner then.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I dealt directly with Michael Torgan.
Yeah. I was at New Beverly last night. He's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Being
I love
amazing.
Michael. He's a lovely, lovely guy. But that was a big night as well. We got Rick Baker there to introduce it.
I think I was there. I think Max Landis was there with his
Yes,
video
he
camera.
was. Yes,
Oh,
he was.
God.
He's like, look,
Yeah.
Dad, this is all for you. And I was like,
Ew.
So, Paul,
really?
so you were a Wookiee, right?
Yes, I wanted.
Like, we've got to know about this.
I was a Wookiee. I'm going to be able to say that after a few more of these.
You were
I
a
was a
Wookiee.
Wookiee.
You are a Wookiee.
Was a
That's
Wookiee.
not lucky.
Was a Wookiee.
I was a Wookiee.
Yes, I
I
was.
can't do it.
I can't do it
Wait,
either.
wait.
No
Everyone
one
do
can
their
it.
Wookiee impression.
I was.
I can't. Well, bring Eddie out, my little dog. He's a Wookiee.
Yeah, that was an interesting sight. I mean, I can't follow the Wookiee noises.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Go on.
No, that came about. I'm a failed actor. Like I
A failed actor who's been in Star Wars.
There's
The
no such thing as a
Simpsons.
failed actor.
I've not been in The Simpsons.
I thought you were in The Simpsons.
No, I went to a table read. They didn't let me talk.
Oh, well then you're nobody.
At the Simpsons.
I just like,
Okay.
but I mean,
Yes.
you're in Star Wars. Like,
I am in
that's
Star
fucking
Wars.
awesome.
I am
That's
in
not
Star
failed
Wars.
actor territory.
Well, no, because I auditioned for a drama school in London, the same one that Amy Winehouse went to, when I was 17, and didn't really read the room. Like you're in this kind of lobby with all these theatre kids who are practicing like Catcher in the Rye, To Kill a Mockingbird, Shakespeare,
All the
and
classics,
here I am
yeah.
with the fucking Samuel Jackson monologue from the end of Pulp Fiction.
And that didn't get you in
No.
immediately?
Dang.
I just
No.
think of Waiting for Guffman when they're doing the
Right,
auditions.
right.
It's like, fucking.
It's like, no, I knew as soon as I sat down, I was like, this was a bad choice. Like, before I'd even started talking.
I would have immediately just put you on the short list. I would have had you're accepted.
Right. And I
You
was,
took a choice.
I was
You
dropping
took a
all the
choice.
F-bombs and everything, and I was just...
Oh,
If I could do a do-over, if I was 17 years old all over again, and I had that audition, I would do something from Clockwork Orange.
Ooh.
You think that would have gotten better than...
Then Samuel Jackson, yeah.
Truth or dare?
Dare.
Dare, okay. Later, you have to recite that entire, like, do it just like you did at the audition.
I can't remember it. I could
Yes.
do the intro to A Clockwork Orange, though.
Okay, all right.
Um,
Do you have the,
We stand Malcolm, so.
Oh.
But Star Wars came about literally. So I'd done my short film, The Body, and my makeup effects supervisor on it was John Schoonrad, who's done makeup effects for fucking everything. And I got a call from John saying, "Would you like to be in Doctor Who?" Is that it? Have I got the part? Is this phone call it? And he was like, "Someone has literally dropped out. and they start shooting in 3 weeks, and you are the closest person I know to his height. So I went straight to Millennium Effects, who did the effects. I had a fitting for this suit. The episode was called Sleep No More. I played a character called the King Sandman, where I was completely cocooned in foam latex, and the only eye hole I had was in the mouth, and it was like there. So I was acting with everybody's shoes for a week. But there was one moment where a former cosmetics factory. So before you go in there, it's hot. It's really hot. Then you put the suit on. Then they turn the lights on.
Oh, gosh.
It was unbearable.
That
Absolutely
sounds like
unbearable.
a nightmare.
And we were shooting the end of the episode, and all I had to do, it was like I was reaching out for the TARDIS as it disintegrates. And the idea was that I would drop to my knees and then I kind of break apart. Nothing was marked on the actual crash map. So we're doing like 8 takes, 9 takes, 10 takes, and I'm either too far to the left or I'm too far to the right, or my hand is too far forward. By this point, I can see the entire crew is just ready to kill someone. So I gave the signal to take the head down, because it was the head, torso, arms, all the way down to the groin was one piece.
Oh my gosh.
And then it was just the legs was the second piece. Wow. So they'd have to unpin the back, pull the hood down. They'd have to bungee cord it to keep it down, because it was really thick foam rubber. So if you left it, it would just spring back up. And I said to the director, get me some industrial tape. Put one bit there, put one bit there, because all I can see is directly down.
Oh my god.
So I will know where to land, exactly where you want me to land. And I did this in front of the entire crew. Yeah. So
as a director, I'm just like,
yeah. As a director, I'm like,
but also,
But yeah, you do what you have to do. Yeah, exactly. You know?
I was thinking about the rest of the crew.
You weren't being,
this could have been done on the first take.
And also heat stroke for you.
Well, and as an actor too, like sometimes you have to speak up, especially if it involves your safety or the safety of others.
Yeah.
So they put down the industrial tape. One take, boom, done.
Nice.
But he then wanted to make an example of me. And he said, you're not done yet. You're going to go and get scanned for an action figure.
How do you get scanned for an action
By
figure?
those three, like the cameras all around you?
No, not for Doctor Who. They take you into the fucking parking lot and just snap
tell you
you
to go
from all
behind
angles.
the wall in the alleyway.
Yeah, so I did Doctor Who. And then a very, very dear friend of mine, Waldo Mason, who's an incredible makeup effects artist. I got a call from him. Oh, you guys are just gonna want to beat me up after this, but no regrets. I got a call from him, I think initially in 2013. This was around the time that the Body short went to. And he said, I'm working on a project. Please send a full body shot of you in just cycle shorts and email it to this address.
And you're going to give
Red
us this for
to put on.
So I knew what he was working on. So I was like, oh shit. So immediately I found like a floor to ceiling mirror, did it. Forgot about it. Got a phone call about 6 weeks later. Hello, I'm from the creature effects department at Lucasfilm. Do you have a resume? We just have a photo of you in your underwear. And I was like, I'm literally about to go on vacation to Orlando, but I will do this as soon as I get back. While I'm on vacation in Orlando, I find out that The Body had just won Best Short Film. So immediately, that's where my brain is at, and because I got signed by CAA off the back of all that stuff, so like my reps are all coordinating. We're gonna bring you out to LA, this, and this. Completely forgot.
Wow! Oh no!
And it was for Chewbacca in The Force Awakens.
Shit!
Oh my gosh!
So.
But you know what? It's for a good reason, you know. You got some good news.
I wouldn't have been able to do half the shit that Jonas did as Chewbacca. But
that's still,
yeah. Fast forward a few years, I get a message from Waldo again, and he was like, "We have the picture. Just send in your fucking resume, dude."
Oh my gosh!
And then I got asked to go and audition, and I've never been on an audition in my life.
Where you didn't use Samuel L. Jackson.
Other
Right.
than that, other than
That's
that.
your kind of your, so
But
that's
I'm-
what you use for
Yeah,
Star
that was
Wars,
yeah,
right?
that was my
That was
tape.
your-
Yeah, that was my
Star
self
Wars.
tape.
I wait, oh my god, can you imagine?
Jedi's, motherfucker, did you see them? You refer to the one who will bring balance to the Force. You believe it's this boy? So I turn up to Pinewood for a fucking audition for a Star Wars movie.
Oh my gosh.
And you're like, I'm at fucking
I'm
Pinewood
at Pinewood.
for
and
a
I'm just
Star
like,
Wars audition.
Like,
So
what
I
is
walk
life?
in, and I soon learned that I was in a room full of guys that had signed up for an extras agency, but have never been called in for anything before because they're too tall.
Yeah.
So none of them have acted.
Oh my gosh.
So I got a call back, I want to say 6 weeks later, for a full body scan. I go in, and the creature department coordinator says, "Do you mind staying behind? Because we'd like to do a camera test with you." So, yes, fine. I go to the creature shop, I walk in, and Maria Cork, who was the head fabricator, she's like, "Right, we just want to get you in this, and then we'll go from there." I look on the table, it's fucking Chewie's costume.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And I just took a step back, and I was like, "You want me to what?
Oh
you
my
want,
gosh.
You want me in that?" It's like, "Yeah." And it was one of the costumes from The Last Jedi, which hadn't come out yet, but so I put it on, and then they bring me the head, and they put the head on me, and they fit it, and they're like, "Right, come outside." And I was like, hang on, under the mask, with the mouth not moving, hang on. Is there a mirror that I can just go and look
Yeah.
at this? Like, yeah, sure. They took me over to this mirror, and it was a really surreal moment because I knew I was looking at the mirror, but it was Chewbacca staring back at me.
Oh, that's so poetic.
And I started crying. Like,
Oh my
I'm glad I
gosh.
had that mask on because none of them could see it, but I started crying. Anyway, they took me outside, and I'm greeted by about 8 crew members. One of them had an industrial hose, and the rest of them were carrying buckets of water, and another one had a camera. And Neil Scanlon, the head of Creatures, says to me, "So you know that thing that dogs do when they get wet?" I was like, "What? Shaking?" "Yep, do that." And then, boom, I'm soaked. Just drenched with water. And I just immediately went into character. So I just did like loads of Chewy kind of moves. And then I just went full, big shake. And it wasn't until because they never give you any context. It wasn't until I saw the movie that I learned that it was supposed to be a deleted moment. Because obviously this is for Solo. After Han and Chewie meet in that pit, and it's all muddy and everything. And the next sequence is them in a shower together.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be once Han leaves the frame, Chewie was going to shake it off and then follow him. But I did get the job, and throughout the entire Phil Lord and Chris Miller era of directing that movie, which I saw a lot of, I was the behind-the-scenes Chewbacca for about a year. So I did all the show and tells, I did all of the camera tests, and we shot for like 7 weeks.
Wow.
I get to go to conventions now and sign that 1 8x10 of my
That's
shot.
so cool.
You know, and if people, you know, want the autograph of the Wookiee that's carrying a drill, then I'm humbled and flattered by that.
That's so cool. Man, you've done some cool stuff.
So, back to you as a director.
Mm-hmm.
You were like an integral part in Into the Dark getting made, right? Can you tell us about that?
I was hired before most of the producers were. It was that was a really fucking strange thing. Like when I first came to LA in 2014 to meet the town, as they call it, I'd just done the short film with Alfie Allen, and the one question that I kept getting asked was, "Will you adapt the body as a feature?" And like Ray in Ghostbusters said, "No," you know? Which was my mistake because all they wanted to hear was yes, and my career probably would have started many years earlier had I just said yes. But it was 2017. I remember it vividly. My co-writer, the guy who hired me to do the short in the first place, Paul Fisher, got a message from him saying, "I'm done with the business. I don't want to do it anymore." And I was just like, and as an attempt to keep the faith, I was like, "Dude, let's attempt at least a draft of the body as a feature. it may not work, it may work, who knows? Like, we know where the short begins and ends. It's how we extend it that is the key thing. And that's the funny thing. Like, I watched the movie recently. It's the first time I've seen it since it came out, and it still bugs me that I can tell really vividly like where it should have ended. You know, and it feels like we're just taking a piece of gum and, you know, stretching it. I started with an outline that I thought might work, but then I did a really weird double bill of Martin Scorsese's After Hours and The Terminator. And I was like, this is what the movie needs to be. It's what happens when the Terminator's night just goes from bad to worse.
Oh my gosh.
So that's kind of where the idea for the feature came from. We said we were going to start writing it, and then while we were writing it, my manager got a call from Roy Lee's company, Vertigo, saying, we really like the short, are you sure you don't want to do it as a feature? So I was like, well, funnily enough, we've already started writing it. So we said we'd get it done by the end of, before Hollywood shuts down for Christmas break. We sent it off to Vertigo, and within 3 days, my agent, not my manager who set up the Vertigo thing, my agent, Blumhouse want to buy your script.
Fuck.
This was on the 23rd of December.
Wow.
Friday. And I was like, well, what about Vertigo? We gave them 24 hours to read it, and they said, go ahead. So I was like, okay.
Wow.
The thing was, though, they bought the script. There was no deal in place at that point for me to direct it. So that was the longest holiday period I've ever had. We started shooting May 5th, 2018.
Wow.
And we had to completely rewrite the script.
Oh, wow.
Because like I said, it was a $20 million...
And those budgets were...
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We were lucky because the first one...
Because you're the very first,
We were the very first one.
Yeah.
We were the very first Into the Dark, set on Halloween night, because obviously the conceit was that it would be a different holiday for each month.
Right.
And it's interesting. I mean, I was so naive to the business, but even going into this, I knew that the money was going to get smaller the more they went along. And boy, did I fucking know that when I got onto Uncanny Annie.
Oh. You learn. You live and you learn.
So tonight was the first viewing for me and the first viewing for Alyssa. But Emma, you've seen this, but in how long? How long has it been?
Like a year.
A year?
Yeah.
Okay. And
you made
that works to talk about your very first viewing, which happened to be the first viewing for a lot of the UK.
This is so fascinating.
It's the night it aired. Yeah.
Yeah,
Halloween night, 1992. I was 11 years old. What can I say? We thought it was real. We thought it was real.
Yeah.
We had no indication to think otherwise, because there is if you go back and watch it, the written by Stephen Volk credit at the very beginning is barely 2 seconds long. And that's because the BBC insisted they put that on the front of the programme 24 hours before it aired. It was never intended to be there, to kind of play up the authenticity of it being put out as a live broadcast, as it were. But the BBC just got cold feet.
Wow.
And they knew that if they did not put something at the front end of it to say, hey, we said it's a drama all along, then any complaints that they had, it would have been a lot harder for them to defend it. And boy, did they get some fucking defense.
Oh, we have some follow-ups on that.
Yeah. So this was, they're opening themselves to a War of the Worlds situation, which, I mean, that's going to be the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about a program that scares a nation.
Right.
And this is a much more modern version of it. So what were some of the reactions in the UK at that time?
I mean, you know, hindsight's 2020. Looking back on it now, I can't think of anything prior to Ghostwatch other than, as you mentioned, the Mercury Theatre 1938, Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, that really kind of got people in a furor as it did. The only thing that I can compare it to, and but in terms of the reaction was when The Exorcist came out.
Oh, wow.
Because people just did not know how to fucking react to it.
Right.
And it was banned by local councils.
Oh,
and
wow.
they set up tour buses to go and see The Exorcist at the nearest theatre.
Yeah. Oh.
So when Ghostwatch aired, I missed the opening, so I missed the whole fucking written by credit. All I'm seeing is Michael Parkinson, Sarah Green, who was the host of like the children's TV show going live at the time. The phone number they used was the same phone number for going live, and they had popular TV shows like Crime Watch.
Yeah.
So it just felt like it was a Halloween special of Crime Watch, but we're looking for ghosts.
Yeah.
Craig Charles, who, is Lister from Red Dwarf, Mike Smith, who's married to Sarah Green, these were real BBC personalities. And why the hell would we not trust the BBC?
Right.
It's the nation's auntie,
Oh my
It was
gosh.
there during the war. It doesn't lie to you. So the reason that Stephen Volk wanted it at the BBC was to subvert that, that honesty that is kind of part and parcel with the BBC. We got about halfway through. Well, like when I was watching it with my mum, like I said, I was 11. We got about halfway through, and I'd already seen The Exorcist at this point. So I was like, I'm seeing similarities here. I'm like, all right, they had over 30,000 complaints the following day.
Wow.
And that only grew and grew and grew. And, there were a lot of people that thought it was real, but equally there were a lot of people that didn't.
Right.
So.
Like British Jeff Goldblum was in the movie. British Jeff Goldblum.
Well, and for them being, because one thing Emma mentioned that these were actual BBC personalities at the time, but me watching it, the acting is wonderful for them being, television hosts, news hosts, that sort of thing. I thought that it was incredibly natural, and if I was just watching a documentary, I 100% would have believed it. So considering it is something that's scripted, I mean, they did an amazing job. They did have me, like, fully believing, even though I knew.
Right.
So I can only imagine someone who trusts these people in their homes every night. It's like if Walter Cronkite did this to our grandparents.
You're like, why would he do that? Like, why, Oh my gosh.
I mean, I could show you clips of Michael Parkinson, Sarah Green, Mike Smith, Craig Charles. It's almost as though they're not acting, because it's not out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Right.
It's what they're used to doing. So they didn't have to put on any kind of performance. They were just reading the lines as if they were reading an auto cue.
Well, and that's
it.
I wrote in my notes as we were watching it, did they have a formal script, or were they just like, they had a structure and they had to...
There was a script.
Okay.
Stephen Volk was approached by the producer, Ruth Baumgarten, who did a series for BBC called Screen One, which was almost like a play of the week kind of thing. It was originally conceived as a 6-part series. And the idea was that it was set in a haunted tower block in Manchester, in northern England, and there would be like ABC stories that kind of connected, and then the final episode would be a live broadcast from inside the house. And everybody loved it, but they got a little bit jittery about committing to a 6-part, horror story, as it were. But then Ruth said, look, we have one of these Screen Ones for free. We have one going. Do you want to do this as a one-off? So rather than shoehorn 6 hours into one, Stephen said, let's do the final episode. And one of the things that's interesting as well, I see a lot of people, when they talk about the Ghostwatch today, refer to this as being based on the Enfield poltergeist.
That's what I thought. That was my...
Is it not?
Consciously, it was not.
Wow.
But-
It was... I know. So this is the thing. When it went into production, they probably looked at the Enfield poltergeist as a template for how it should look. And obviously, it's got the same dynamics of the mother with the
children.
adolescent
Yeah.
children.
Right.
But Stephen, when he was writing it, he looked up so many different cases, both in the UK and the US. But more than that, he infused, And this is what astounds him about how he doesn't get why people thought it was so real. He infused so many popular horror movies into it. Specifically, The Exorcist. You know, the mother being plagued by this outside force that is taking over the child. The siege mentality of Night of the Living Dead. The abuser character of Freddy Krueger in the backstory of Pipes. The cross-dressing element of Norman Bates from Psycho.
Okay.
So that's where those influences came from. And he's like, I don't believe that people thought this was real because I literally just ripped off horror movies. So...
That's interesting because it really does feel so close to Enfield because that was like 77?
77, yeah.
And so I know it was big for a while and the Warrens got involved, like IRL, not Conjuring Universe.
Right.
Not in a big way, but like, you know, there's like...
The Warrens turned up and left.
Yeah, I mean, using a lot of horror does take from real life, and one of the things that I kept on noticing in the film, having seen it for the first time, is like, okay, Insidious with the dress and the man dressing as a woman in the long black dress.
Too, I thought of.
But also, James Wan is obsessed with the paranormal. And this, you know, if you watch The Conjuring 2, obviously he's seen Ghostwatch.
So, of course, everyone thinks of The Conjuring for the Enfield haunting and their take on it, even though, like you said, they came and left. But, of course, that's all very dramatized. But the British...
legend.
Yeah. But there's a British 6-part about the Enfield haunting called The Enfield Haunting that I think
Timothy
does...
Spall. Brilliant.
Yes, it does an amazing job.
Very good.
And so a lot of the things that I was seeing in this, specifically I remember the photograph that she used for her book reminded me of the little girl jumping because of the hair flying in the bedroom.
Yes.
So that's what I was thinking was the Enfield haunting. But I do love that, of course, it has to be more than that. And that's kind of crazy. You're like, why did people not see this when it is this heightened version of something that they had already heard?
Yeah, no, it was essentially just, you know, a stew pot where Stephen just threw all the things that he loved into it. And all these other influences, the things that he researched before going into it. And obviously Enfield was one of those, but it wasn't the main influence on it.
Wow, okay.
Afterwards, the BBC, obviously they were facing a lot of criticism. There was definitely a lot going on at the time about this. So it seems like they were kind of... You know, they were obviously going to back away with it, but now, you know, it's on Shudder. It's in the U.S. People are buying shirts from it. People know about it. It's become a cult hit. So, like, how do you think that changed over time?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, I watched it that night, and I remember going to school following Monday morning, and it's all everybody talks about.
Really? Oh, wow.
How many times did you see Pipes? You know, it was one of those things. So it was one of those things where it was in the zeitgeist for about a month, and everybody was talking about it. I mean, and it was front page news for a long time because sadly there was a kid that famously killed himself after
That's on
watching
our
it.
notes too.
Which is horrible when things like that happen.
I guess that was one of our questions we were going to ask you. Is that a true story?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
will you tell us like what happened?
I don't know the ins and outs of it because I don't like to get into those kind of things.
Yeah.
But it was there was a guy, a young, I want to say late teens. He killed himself day after or 2 days after, and in his suicide note he said that Ghostwatch basically convinced him that there was an afterlife, and that he could leave this life behind to go on to that.
It just like give me chills.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, and you talked about The Exorcist, and I know I was recently watching on Shudder Eli Roth's History of Horror, and they were talking about The Exorcist and how
Similar thing.
that
Similar
people
thing.
Wow.
took, you know, especially like religious people were having issues with it, but it was also bringing on all this with the devil and the afterlife and possession, and it really changed. You know, it's a movie that changed how people thought about something that's very visceral to a lot of people. That changed about like the religion and death.
It was also, I mean, not, you know, a little sidebar with The Exorcist. That movie in particular, it touched upon a subject in such a pragmatic and realistic way that only William Friedkin could shoot it.
Hurricane Billy for
Hurricane Billy for life. that it was something that people didn't understand, and it wasn't in 20th century pop culture. So when the biggest fucking R-rated movie of all time is shoving it in your face, I tell it, like, to this day, I tell you, the two institutions that will never denounce that movie are the Catholic Church and psychiatrists, because they both got a lot of business when that movie came out.
Yeah.
But with Ghostwatch, the BBC, obviously they understood that there could be a backlash, otherwise they wouldn't have put the right written by credit on at the beginning. But to get 30,000 complaints immediately after it finished. So when it aired, I asked them this specifically. The cast and crew, they all went to a private screening, mostly because, and this is what I love, to play into the authenticity. They wanted everybody who was part of the production accounted for, that they weren't available or around their family and friends
I love
on
that.
the night that it happened. So they had a private screening, and the producer, Ruth Baumgarten, she watched it at the BBC because she wanted to see the reactions of everybody there. So in the lobby at Television Centre, which isn't there anymore, they had a huge lobby with tons of TVs, like in a semicircle, hanging from the ceiling. Every single person that was working that night was in that lobby, watching Ghostwatch on those TVs. That's how powerful it was.
Wow.
Even for the people who made it.
Oh my gosh.
So, Stephen Volk, is that how you say his name? I mean, did the backlash, like, affect him in any way, his career?
I mean, it affected both Stephen Volk and... Stephen Volk, I just want to give a shout out to him. He directed Gothic. He wrote Gothic, which is directed by Ken Russell, which is a wonderful movie. So he's steeped in genre. You know, he loves horror. He's written countless short stories. But Ghostwatch is the thing that he's most known for. And it was directed by Leslie Manning, badass female director.
Yeah.
Her daughter just directed the movie that debuted at Cannes, How to Have Sex. Which, if you've not seen, it's on I think it's on Tubi. It's fucking great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Fucking great movie. Very real. I mean, as someone who used to DJ abroad, I kind of lived that life that movie is about. But anyway, so Leslie was the director. It kind of stalled... I don't want to say it stalled both of their careers, but when Stephen told me when he was writing Ghostwatch, it's like, when you write something, and we can appreciate this as filmmakers, you just hope that it gets made.
Yeah.
Because movies, like, movies do everything in their fucking possible, like, way to not get made in this universe.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it is... A movie getting made is a miracle.
Yeah.
We just hoped that it was a good movie.
But, like, that's the thing about classics to me, is, like, you don't go into Halloween thinking you're going to make Halloween and it's going to be this big, the biggest slasher of all time. Like, you go into it hoping you make a great fucking movie and you put all of yourself into it. Movie. But I think that's the difference between a lot of, like, films then to now.
Right.
Where it's like, you know, half the people we know are like, oh, I'm trying to make something in the vein of Halloween but gritty, or I'm trying to do this or that. It's like, if you go into a film sorry, we're on a tangent here, but like
do it.
Trying to be authentically yourself and make something like that's like your own creative vision without the cloud of like, I'm gonna make The Exorcist or I want to use shots from this or that. Like, if you're just fucking making something, then you maybe you'll end up with Ghostwatch.
Because they just did that in the last Exorcist
exactly.
movie, and look what happened.
Woof.
We don't talk about that tonight. We're going to stick to Ghostwatch.
Just saying.
But that reminds me, just out of curiosity, though, of all the inspirations, just the movies that were inspired and incorporated into this one. Which one was your favorite?
Well, at 11 years old, I noticed The Exorcist immediately.
Yeah.
I think that was the moment where I realised, hang on, something's not right here. Like, this is too familiar. The cat scratches on the face and the voice and everything. Which, again, you can attribute to the Enfield poltergeist because...
That was part of it.
Yeah.
Especially the water gargling.
Yeah.
And all the tests.
But
Not that the
yeah,
lines
it just
do
felt very, a lot of that felt very much like The Exorcist. But I loved that Stephen mentioned that Freddy Krueger was an inspiration for like the idea of the Mr. Pipes character being an abuser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of neat because I hadn't spotted that before.
Right.
So I thought that was cool.
Well, and that's difficult in horror because I know that's one of the things. Like when I watched New Freddy versus original Freddy,
Murderer versus Predator.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
yes, and it like I was like I'm uncomfortable, but not in like the good way. I'm uncomfortable, just
It's
like
just
I don't know
too-
if that
yeah.
needed to happen.
Right, it absolutely
It gave
did
me
not.
the ick.
Yes,
Yeah, it
but-
didn't need to be there.
No, but this, it's kind of, it had me thinking of a little bit Amityville, where they're like, it's not him, it's the voices. And besides me thinking, sir, that's a HIPAA violation. You can't talk about his medical history, but he's dead, so fine. They added that part in. I was like, sir. But the having, where they talk about, like, exorcism, she's not going to sit there as a little girl going, like, stabbing herself with a crucifix,
Right.
but a demon's going to make her do it. And him doing all these horrible things. And then very briefly, they were like, if we go, the parapsychologist is trying to say, if we go back, like this is all tied to the same thing. And if I thought that the way that they touched on it, and they had to do it so quickly because this is something that's supposed to feel real.
Right.
And that she's just trying to, explain it in a way that people will understand in a frantic state, which I thought she did such a good job of. Her moments, and I know that like this was her thing. I swear she spent half the movie just being like, which I thought was like this being very British, of just like she's just literally trying to
Yeah.
hold her tongue.
Right.
She was like an esteemed actress, right?
That's the first and only thing I've seen her in.
Really?
Yeah.
Was she stage or anything?
Parasite.
That's what I'm
I
thinking.
think everybody outside of the presenters were stage actors.
She just
Okay.
looks
Because
so
I
much
read
like
somewhere
Helen
that
Hunt to
like
me.
it was like Judi Dench or someone was like, "Oh, I know you," and left a message on her machine while she was like out at the rap party. It was like, "You ruined Ghostwatch for me." 'cause I instantly knew you were an actor, so
She was great. I mean, she was
Yeah.
a great actor.
Right. Yeah.
So I can only imagine if I was watching this for the first time and not knowing it was real, that like I would be like, why is no one paying attention to her?
Right.
I can tell you very vividly, going back to my 11-year-old brain, the moment where they're up in the kid's bedroom, and the cameraman pans, and you see him in the curtain.
The very, very first time.
Yeah.
yeah.
You see pipes in the curtain. And it's a very fleeting thing, because the camera then goes back and he's gone.
Yep.
That was just a, what the fuck did I just see moment, because you saw it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And that was before, like, you realised that shit was rotten in Denmark.
I mean, the way that they, just to talk about, like, this is a movie, and as someone who, like, makeup is one of my favorite things to comment on, like, I do it, and I love it, and this movie did not have that. That's not a thing in it, but the effects were incredibly effective. I don't know how else to say it.
No.
But the way that they have these half-lit shadows, I thought was quite beautiful. Just showing this, and the subtlety, which we've talked about before. It's where you don't want to oversee something, because then that gives your brain too much time to decide it's not real. And some of the scariest moments for me, some of the best jump scares, were those brief instances that you saw pipes in the patio door, and then I'm just like, pan, show me that that's not a person,
And that's the thing.
please.
And it doesn't need a musical sting or
Right.
cue. Like, that is the most effective to me of anything.
I
is
did it in
just-
Uncanny Alley.
Well, yeah, you wrote that Ghostwatch
I did
inspired you
I did a
for that.
mini moment in Uncanny Alley. There's a scene, if you watch it on Hulu, all of the cameras. There's a very brief scene at the beginning of the movie, after they've started playing the board game, where Adelaide Kane and Dylan Arnold, I think it's like one of those, like a Bloody Mary dare. She goes into the bathroom, and Annie writes something in the mirror, and then Dylan comes in and it's gone. And you've got this little, you're just being scared, jumping. I had the actress who played Annie standing like just behind the shower curtain, and there's no sting or anything. She's just, as they're walking out, she's
Yes.
just there.
I love
So
that.
that's
Oh my
Ghostwatch.
gosh.
I took that directly from Ghostwatch.
Were there any other moments that inspired you in that movie, or was that the main?
That was the only one I felt like I could get away
Yeah.
with. But I'll tell you this: every movie, every haunted house ghost movie, that hides a ghost in the frame and doesn't draw attention to it.
I kept
That's
thinking
from
of Haunting of
Ghostwatch.
Hill House.
Like,
Haunting
They've
of-
seen Ghostwatch.
Yep.
Yeah.
These girls will tell you I rave all day about the Woman in Black remake with Daniel Radcliffe because the ghost work, not the fucking jump scare screams, her in the background of shots is so subtle and well done that I watched it 2 weeks ago and I had to sleep with the lights on.
Ooh, see, I need to see that again.
Haunting
That
of Hill
stuff.
House.
Same,
They did
same
that.
thing.
Yep.
You have to count the ghosts.
Yep.
And which is something that you count, like you mentioned, you
Yeah.
go to school. How many times did you see
Yeah.
Mr. Pipes?
Right.
I mean, I rewatched Haunting of Hill House to be like, I'm pretty sure I saw 1/10 of the ghosts that were actually
Yeah.
there.
Well,
And
yeah.
you go back and you keep on being like,
And that's why I think it's so effective too, because it almost, in a way, forces you to rewatch it. Like you look forward to rewatching it just to pick that out in the background. I love that.
how many times is Mr. Pipes there that if we are rewatching it, how many times am I going to go through and be like,
I
saw it,
mean,
twice.
yeah, I haven't gone through it in a long time. Alma, I think you said something about 13. which
Yeah,
sounds
I
about
read
right to me.
I read in your article.
Yeah, I think it's 13 times.
13 times. Yeah, but I think I've seen about 4. I'm just so
Wow.
where
Yeah, I want to.
I can name 4. That's all I can name off the top of my head.
I saw 2. Oh my gosh. This is exciting. I want to go back and watch it now.
The most vivid, and I say vivid because there was quite an elaborate makeup done on the actor who played Pipes. The most vivid time you see him is when Craig Charles goes out and interviews the 2 women outside, and then comes back and he's got the expert, the tech expert with him, and they're walking past all of the crowd that are outside. He's just behind them.
Completely missed
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
I've seen
Okay.
this movie a million fucking
Me-
times. I've
he's
never
just
seen
So
it.
now
behind
I'm-
them,
okay,
but there's a light on him, so you can see
Okay.
the wound.
Interesting, because I thought that was a costume. I thought that was somebody in a costume.
that's
So when
him.
I was watching
That's
it, I didn't
so
notice
cool.
it because I
That's
thought it
Pipes.
was just.
Well, they had those people in costume
Oh.
because it's Halloween, which I think is, and then
Right.
they have the guy pop out in the beast mask,
Oh my god!
which I think helps kind of hide that you're not going to think twice. I miss
Right.
that, and I love a good makeup effect.
Right.
I also love how they lit him from above, especially knowing that he was hung. Like there's just something extra. Not he was hung. He hung.
You saw him in that one moment,
Hanged,
when it goes back to Television Center and the light explodes. And
I didn't see him. Oh, in the static, or are you talking?
no. Like there's a bit where a huge light explodes in the studio, and there's someone. That's him as well.
I didn't.
Oh,
Now
remember
I'm gonna go
that
back
part.
and watch it again. I've missed all of these.
Gosh.
We watch it until you find everyone.
Whoever
Every fucking-
watches this,
the 13
needs to-
ghosts.
yeah,
Yeah.
the 13 ghosts.
Oh, I
need to
love
write,
that.
write in the comments when he appears, because now I really want to see.
Timestamps.
Timestamps,
Yeah.
please.
Oh, that's
Oh
a
my
good.
gosh.
It's a good watch party to see how many people catch him at the end to be like a bingo stamp of
Oh
I
my
got
gosh.
I got this many Mr. Pipes.
How many pipes you peep?
How many
Yeah.
pipes you pooping? Oh
the
my
pipes.
gosh.
Keep the pipe.
Keeps the,
It's
it's a good
it's
game.
a good drinking game.
Yes,
There you
keep
go.
the pipes.
Oh,
And
why
you're like,
didn't
why
we
are you
do that
drinking? What did I
earlier?
miss? What did I miss?
We should have done that earlier.
Keep the
So
pipes.
yeah. Well, I am so happy that you got to talk to us about this because you're the only person I have ever known who was there. And I think that's
Also,
awesome.
I just want to add, in the last year, I have a diploma in parapsychology. So my appreciation for the level of research that's gone into this, and I think when you have your own experiences, which I've had
Right.
multiple experiences that were all very different, but were all very stark and very vivid.
Yeah.
You know, enough for me to happily sit here and say it wasn't sleep paralysis.
Right.
You know, these were very real things. I was not in my bed when these things happened.
Yeah.
To then actually study
That's so cool.
what we know about parapsychology, and I'm going to be honest with you, we still don't know any more than we did when J.B. Ryan started the parapsychology lab
It's true.
at Duke University 130 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
So it can certainly you can look at theories, and I certainly have theories. Like if you were to ask me if I believe in ghosts, I don't know. I
Yeah.
honestly don't know. And
Right.
my dead dad has spoken to me in front of 6 witnesses.
Mm.
You know, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't say to you that it was a ghost. You know, maybe just the people that
You're always gonna,
Yeah, maybe the people that I was in that scenario with just did very good
Right.
research and were able to manipulate it. I couldn't tell you.
No, even if you fully believe in that, and because I'm very into, I'm really intuitive, really spiritual, and I have a lot of dreams about my dad, like visitation dreams, whatever, because my dad passed too. And it's like, even then, you still kind of, even though you fully, because I fully believe in that, and I've seen it, but even then, you're like, but really, how do we know unless we know?
This
How
is my
we
take.
just don't
This
know.
is my take. The world is made up of energy.
Same.
It's all energy. It's and
The
energy
world
never
is made up of
dies.
energy. When we die, we become part of that energy. Whatever the missing variable is that allows us as living people to experience that.
Because we got a lot in here. That's
There's a
not.
lot
That's
going
not.
on there.
And that's
Yeah.
what I always tell people. I always say, well, energy cannot be created or dispersed. Or energy
Right.
cannot be created or destroyed.
Or
It can
destroyed.
only be dispersed.
Right.
And we are energy. It has to go
It
somewhere.
goes somewhere.
So no matter
Yeah.
what you believe, it's your energy going just
Right.
somewhere else.
Right.
And that's what, whenever I think of it from like a logical perspective, that is my like,
Right.
not irrefutable, but just saying, if you want to look at it from
Yeah.
saying like, no, I'm not talking about spiritual. Oh, well, I'm not either. I'm
No,
literally
that's
talking
scientific.
about energy.
Science.
And it's something,
It is.
it's something that we can't, when they say,
Science,
oh, well, you can't
bitch.
see ghosts, you can't see God.
Right.
You can see energy. We can see it. We've
Yeah.
made that possible. And, when they talk about, ghost hunting equipment and it's reading things like that, well, that's energy. That's,
It is. Yeah.
because energy consists of so many different forms. So could it be that it's stuck in a place and that's what ghosts are? Could it be that it gets transmuted to someone else and that's what
Right.
because
Because it goes somewhere.
Yeah,
Or
when you're
distribute-
reborn or
or reincarnated.
reincarnation.
Yeah.
I mean, I fully believe that a haunting, it's almost like a coupling mechanism. It needs a location or an environment that emits enough kind of geomagnetic or electromagnetic energy, and it needs someone who is sensitive to that energy to trigger it. I truly believe that. Because if you think about the different types of hauntings, you have intelligent hauntings where people can interact with something. Or you have a place memory haunting, which is something that was recorded in the atmosphere while this person was alive that gets played back. Like a tape
like a
recorder.
residual.
Yeah. And the best example I can give you is if you went to a Scottish castle and the legend was that a bagpipe player goes to the top of the castle at this time on this day and plays the bagpipes. And if you went up there and you stood there and you watched him and he played the bagpipes
Yeah.
and you said something and he just didn't pay attention to you and he turned and walked away, that's a place memory haunting.
Wow.
If he turns and asks you if you've got any requests, that's an intelligent haunting. But I think that it's all energy.
Yeah.
It's all energy.
No, definitely.
And it depends on how we react to that energy. I think some people are more sensitive to it than others. I think that the more violent hauntings tend to revolve around people, and you can look at some case studies and the material is there. The more violent a haunting, it tends to revolve around someone that has poor coping mechanisms. A lot of poltergeist activity, location, hypersensitivity, poor coping mechanisms, people that are prone to seizures or epilepsy. So then is it a ghost or is it a psychokinetic outburst?
Or could it be both?
Is it a person that's doing it and not realizing that they are doing
Wow.
it? And there is a reason that a lot of poltergeist activity revolves around adolescents because their bodies are changing, their chemical balance is changing. Sorry, I just gave you the most
No, I love that
No, we
so
love it, we
much.
love it.
for a
No.
poltergeist ever.
We could talk forever about that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, but to go away from the sophisticated theories, but so what do you personally have a haunting story? I know you kind of mentioned that you've had 6 people and witnesses talk about your dad, but is there?
I do. I'll tell you a different story because that one's going to be in my movie.
Okay. No spoilers.
No spoilers. So 2015, right around the time I was doing Star Wars, a friend of mine reached out to me because I just started buying ghost equipment. So I this is just after my dad had passed away. I'm still kind of grieving. I'm still kind of looking for closure. I'm really into the paranormal. And my local pub in the UK is from the 17th century. And one of the DJs in there told me a story about how he was closing down one night and there was an old man at the bar. And they'd already kicked everybody out, but he just assumed that he was a late straggler. And he was like, sorry mate, we're closed, time to drink up. And the guy had a drink. He turned and looked at him. And I always picture it kind of like the destitute from Hellraiser. He comes into the pet store. You know,
yeah.
that's the vision I
Oh.
have. And he looked at him, and he downed his drink, and he put it on the bar. Before he took his hand away, he disappeared.
Stop it.
And the
No.
glass disappeared with him.
Nope. Oh my gosh.
So he was just like, okay, that was a thing. That was a thing.
That
just
happened.
So he told me that. And so I asked the managers if I could do a little investigation of the cellar. And we did. And I got like 3 EVPs that I sent to a sound specialist to analyze. And he was like, yeah, they're human voices. But like you can see all 3 of us on camera and none of us are talking.
Wow.
So off the back of that, we were like, maybe we need to do something else. So I went to I'd known of a local legend in my town. So do you guys know like Nestle chocolate?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Nestle Toulouse.
So in my hometown is Nestle headquarters, and my mum, my aunt, my mum's sister, and my grandmother, their mum, all used to work in the Nestle building.
Oh wow.
In the late 60s and early 70s. And they told me the story of a heartbroken woman who basically, I think she got stood up by a guy the night before and jumped off the top window.
Wow.
And she landed at the foot of a pub that was right at the bottom. And I cross-checked with a bunch of stuff. So this pub had a haunting for a long time of a crying woman who would stand at the bar as if she'd been stood up. So I checked into that first, and about 8 different managers spanning from 1969 to 1984 had seen the same woman.
Wow.
I then went to the local library, went through the archives of the local paper, trying to find the story of the jumper.
Wow.
So that I could put a name to it, for one, because I could get access to that pub, because it was closed at that point. And I DJ'd down there once, and I never put 2 and 2 together. Like one night I DJ'd in there, the manager said, if all the lights go out or all the power cuts, it's haunted. So we just kind of deal with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool.
Oh, I love
so
that.
like I'm DJing, I'm
Yeah.
like looking, like see if there's like any apparitions or anything the entire time. Probably fucked up several mixes while I was doing it, but whatever. So my intention was that we would actually do what we did at my local pub, but we'd go and do it there. Because if she's around, maybe she's still there. Go to the library, we spent 2 days in there. Went through the entire archives from 1967 to 1974. Found nothing. I spoke to the local historian who had an office at the library, and he said, well, if it was a suicide, it wouldn't have been reported because it was taboo back then. They wouldn't have mentioned it. So I kind of gave up on it. I went home that night, and I'm in my living room, watching TV. The lights are out already, and it's 2 a.m. I decide I'm going to go to bed. I turn off the TV, put down the remote, and I turn, and there's a woman in the corner of the room. She's wearing a blue dress. She's got a bob hairdo. She had a big nose. See, this is the thing. She wasn't transparent.
Yeah.
It was like it was a person.
Yeah.
And I can tell you these details because it was very real. What do? I turned away. Am I seeing this right now? Is this real? Have I fallen asleep in the chair? And I looked at the clock again, and it had only been like 30 seconds. So I was like, fuck.
Wow.
I'm awake. And I turned back, and it was gone.
Oh, wow.
And the only thing I can think of, I went back to the library and I spoke to the historian. I don't know what you saw, dude, but you were in here looking for her for 2 days. Maybe that was her way of saying thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I mean, there was nothing threatening about it. She was just kind of looking at. Look, she had a very soft.
Well, and if you send that energy too, I know with spirits, if you allow them to, like, if you're receptive to that energy, like they will, yeah.
That's so interesting. Like, I was telling Alyssa recently about like stories I have like that where I'm like, I really thought I was asleep and this guy was standing like over me, but like no transparency, but it felt almost like a dream. Like it was so.
Well, the most common attribution to sleep paralysis is is the hallucination of an apparition of a person.
A lot of times it's the
there,
hat.
there
it's
are
the hat
studies.
guy.
There are studies. I don't know which there is a university in London specifically that does studies on sleep paralysis, and they even have a VR machine where they can recreate.
Sleep paralysis is horrendous if you've never experienced it.
They put weights all over your body.
Oh no!
And then they put the VR on you, and you're literally in a bed, and it's a person standing at the end of your bed. So it's very common. That's a very common thing for
My sleep paralysis, I would always hear things. I didn't necessarily see them, but I felt it, and I could hear like these horrible whispers.
I'll ask you a question. Have you ever had any experiences where you've been in a location that's close proximity to a train station or a train line?
In Sonoma, there's an old train. Yeah.
So one of the things that can be accounted for a lot of hauntings is infrasound, which is a sound that you don't hear but you feel.
Ah, okay, interesting.
And
there's a train here, isn't there?
Yeah. It's vibrations, and it can alter your mood.
Interesting. Wow. Is that why I'm moody all the time at a certain time?
Live by a train station. Got it.
You hear it at like 1 a.m. sometimes just coming by.
Yeah, so there are a lot of hauntings that have been refuted because, well, you are by this train line, so it could very easily be that.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Well, it's like certain ways that they do wiring in your ceiling can do that too, right?
It's EMFs. It's real. I have shungite everywhere. You gotta get that shungite.
If you're having a paranormal investigation and you have a high EMF reading, the only way you are going to get a legitimate registration of what is going on in your house is if you turn off the electrics.
Yeah.
And if that is still happening, then there's a conversation.
I could really mess up your sleep.
Yeah, like my mom was a house flipper for Victorian houses in New England, and a lot of those ghost hunting TV shows would like contact her to go do the locations that she was renovating, and that's the first thing they would do is cut all the power to everything. And I was like, oh, are they just trying to make it creepy so they can use their like night vision cameras? And they were like, no, electricity can cause.
That's another thing that really bugs me. I mean, if you go, like, patterns are everything with hauntings. If you go to a haunting where someone says, well, we see the ghost at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in this corner here, and then fucking Zach Bagans shows up at 3 in the morning and turns all the lights out, of course you're not going to fucking get anything.
I've shot with Zach.
Hey, I'm going to say this on the record. I'm a fan of Ghost Adventures. So
it's fun, but you know what?
We can't even prove bodily death, let alone fucking Imhotep.
That dude is doing so fucking well in life.
Oh, I know.
Has many cars and... You know, has a sex demon dungeon in his basement.
Hey,
like,
shouldn't we all
he's doing
have one?
Whatever he's doing. Keep on doing it,
He
Zach.
has a sex demon. He has a car demon. He has a museum demon.
Well, speaking of demons and sex demons and dungeons, what are you working on now that can bring that about for you next? Huh?
Your sex demon.
What's gonna bring your sex demon?
Again, Zach, I'm a huge fucking fan. What am I working on now? So, I can't really talk. I am actively working on something at the moment with Jed Shepard, who wrote Host, which is on Shudder.
Also an avid ghost adventurer, right?
Oh,
Like,
Well,
And found footage, which
well, yeah, found footage. Oh, that's wait. Hang on. Before we get off this, they recorded it, and then someone
Right.
at the BBC
It wasn't found,
it
it was
like,
live,
let's put this out.
right, and-
No,
yeah,
it,
okay.
yeah, it was a play on the
Interesting.
live broadcast culture. I've also seen it mentioned as a mockumentary. There's nothing documentary or mock documentary about it. It's supposed to be like it's a satire on daytime television, a live broadcast.
Yeah.
I can see where found footage can draw from it,
yeah.
but I don't believe for once, and neither does Stephen Volk think of it as found footage.
Wow.
okay. I'm not saying I
I
disagree.
love it. I love that.
I think that it's interesting that there are so many variances and like subtle differences, but yes, if it was something where they were like, we found this in the vaults of BBC.
Yeah.
Oh,
He
it
didn't
takes
under
like
the
one
Lost Doctor Who
sentence.
episode.
One
Yeah.
sentence.
I think the
yeah.
closest thing that's ever come to Ghostwatch, I mean, there's tons of great fucking found footage movies out there, but in terms of the format of Ghostwatch, the closest thing that's ever come close, how many times can I say come close in this sentence, was Deadline, the Halloween special by Inside Number 9.
Oh,
Which
okay.
was done exactly the same way.
Wow.
And in fact, Stephen Volk texted Reece Shearsmith of Inside Number 9 after he watched it
Wow.
and said, I'm so glad that, you kind of acknowledged Ghostwatch. And Reece just replied, it was all for you.
Oh my
I love
gosh.
that.
All for you, Damien.
It's all
my
for you.
gosh. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
She's like,
She's like,
Oh.
done.
So before
Yeah,
we wrap
take a
this
seat.
up, since you're British and you're kind of a big deal, do you think that you could give Joseph Quinn my phone number?
oh, please, all of us, please, write it on a napkin. Call
No.
him right now on the phone.
Are you guys friends?
No,
Wait,
Can you be?
can you please? Please.
I can try.
I
I can ask the cosmos.
That would be amazing.
I just think that him and I should hang out.
I think so too. I think that would be a
He
beautiful,
should be at the
beautiful.
slumber party,
Don't.
shouldn't he?
I wouldn't bring him here, no.
I
She's got a
would.
demon sex dungeon. for
I
that.
would. Well, yeah, she's got her own. She's got her own dude sex dungeon for
Fucking
that.
masters of puppets on a fucking loop.
Well, then in your downtime, besides all these projects that you're working on, what horror movies are you excited for?
I'm a nostalgia baby, so I think the movie that I'm most looking forward to this year is Beetlejuice.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are getting those 90s comebacks and all that.
We
Well,
are.
80s, 90s,
We
but
are.
yeah.
That and non-horror. I mean, again, non-horror movie. Beverly Hills Cop 4, Beetlejuice are my two
Beverly Hills Cop
that I'm really looking forward to.
Bad Boys 4.
Bad Boys 4,
I just saw the
everything
trailer for that. I
4.
didn't even know that existed.
Oh my
until-
gosh.
Yeah. More
I didn't
Bad
know
Boys.
any of this existed.
Like, didn't they go like full supernatural to the end? Like, there was a
don't
woman who was
even
cursing them or
freaking
something.
She was a
in the last
witch.
one.
She was a
witch.
bruja. Yeah.
bruja.
Yeah.
And now Will Smith has a kid, and
Yeah.
he's a killer.
Yeah.
He killed
where did they go after that? I didn't
To
see any of that in the
space.
trailer.
There you go.
Yeah,
Oh,
just
God.
go
Space.
full Jason X. Just go to space.
Bad Boys fake the moon landing. There you go.
That's exactly
here
what
for it.
happened.
Watch it.
Oh my god, guys! My mom just woke up. You gotta get out. Go,
voice.
Thank you so much for being here, Paul. We really enjoyed talking with you. Yay!
Well, I don't know how I'm gonna get any sleep tonight, but I hope you can. And please like, subscribe, comment, and we cannot wait to hear what y'all thought.
See you at the next slumber party.
Woo! Ooh.
Fucking idiots.